Have you ever felt like a piece out of place? As if the world follows a script that simply doesn't make sense to you, and the rules that everyone accepts seem arbitrary or even absurd. Maybe you laugh at things others take seriously, or take seriously what they consider silly. You don't fit perfectly into boxes, you don't vibrate at the standard frequency, and sometimes you wonder if there's something fundamentally wrong with you. It's a lonely feeling, a constant navigation against the invisible current of normal. And society, with its strange looks or even pity, seems to confirm that disconnection. It whispers, or shouts, that you should adjust. Think like the majority, desire what the majority desires. That your madness, that unique way of being and seeing the world, is a deviation, a flaw, to be corrected. But what if that disconnection isn't a flaw? What if the problem isn't in you, but in the very definition of normal that the world insists on imposing? What if what we call madness is, in fact, a sharper way of perceiving reality, stripped of illusions and conventions that imprison the minds of most? Think about the people who dare to be radically different, the artists who break patterns, the scientists who question established dogmas, the thinkers who challenge the status quo, or simply those souls who live life on their own terms, unapologetically. Often these figures are initially labeled as eccentric, naive, or even crazy. History is full of examples of individuals who were misunderstood in their time because their visions were too broad, too deep, or simply diverged from the comfort of collective mediocrity. They dared to see beyond the veil of convention, to point out the emperor's nakedness when everyone else praised his non-existent clothes. And what happens? They are marginalized, ridiculed, sometimes even persecuted. But why such a strong reaction? Because radical authenticity and refusal to play the game of collective hypocrisy are direct threats to the established order. In a world where the majority find safety in uniformity, those who stand out for their individuality and peculiar clarity become uncomfortable mirrors. They reflect not their own madness, but our voluntary blindness, our fear of questioning, our convenience in accepting what we're given without thinking. The sanity of the masses is often based on a tacit agreement to ignore uncomfortable truths and follow a path that, while safe, may be empty of meaning. The mad one in this context is not someone who has lost reason, but someone who has found a greater reason, a truth that transcends the small logics of day-to-day life and the hollow expectations of society. He is not afraid to seem senseless because his inner compass points in another direction, guided by values and perceptions that most people cannot or will not see. That is the first and perhaps most frightening lesson. True madness may not be the individual's divergence, but the very norm that excludes him. It takes courage to stand by your own vision when the crowd around insists you are wrong, simply because you refuse to be just another voice in the crowd. Validation doesn't come from outside, but from within, from the certainty that there is more to life than what is easily measured or approved by external standards. That internal strength, that stubbornness in being who you are, is what the world labels as madness, but it is, in essence, the foundation of freedom. And maybe that's why the fool fascinates and scares us at the same time. He embodies the freedom we secretly desire but fear to claim. History and art present us with various incarnations of this archetype of the wise fool. We're not talking here about mental illness, but about a symbolic figure, that person whose mind operates on a different frequency, challenging conventional logic and revealing new dimensions of existence. Think of the great innovators. Da Vinci was seen as eccentric. His ideas seemed like fantasies in his time. Einstein, with his messy hair and revolutionary thinking, embodied the image of the slightly mad genius. In art, Van Gogh painted a world of colors and shapes that shocked the sensitivity of his time, seen as disturbed but now celebrated for his unique vision and emotional intensity. In literature, the character of the idiot or fool often serves as a catalyst for truth, exposing the hypocrisy of the sane characters. They don't need diplomas or titles to access a wisdom that comes from a deeper place, perhaps from intuition, purity of intention, or simply from the freedom of having no reputation to defend or expectations to meet. That freedom, not caring about others' judgment, gives them a clarity of vision that escapes those imprisoned by the desire for approval and fear of being different. They do not filter their perceptions through the distorted lenses of what is socially acceptable. They see what is, and often dare to say it. And why is that direct vision so powerful and scary? Because society builds its cohesion on a series of tacit agreements, small and big convenient lies that everyone agrees to maintain to preserve peace, or the illusion of peace. The figure of the madman who points out the farce threatens to destabilize that fragile structure. He is like the child in the story of the emperor, who doesn't have the social filter that stops adults from speaking the obvious truth. His purity or apparent naivety is his greatest weapon. He doesn't seek power or status, so he isn't afraid of losing them. He isn't bound by the rules of the game, so he can point out their arbitrariness. He doesn't hide behind masks of seriousness or sophistication because he isn't ashamed of his own humanity, with all its imperfections and contradictions. And it's precisely that radical transparency that makes him dangerous to a system that thrives on dissimulation. He forces us to confront ourselves, to question why we accept certain things, why we pretend not to see what is right in front of us. The answer is almost always fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not being enough, fear of being, yes, considered mad. We prefer the safety of the herd, even if it means sacrificing our individuality and our ability to think critically. The madman reminds us that this choice has a high cost, the loss of our own authentic soul. True sanity may lie in the ability to see the absurdity of the world and still find joy, purpose, and meaning, even if that quest takes us off the beaten path. The wisdom of the madman is not academic, it is existential. It is the wisdom of one who lives intensely, without being overly concerned with conventions, who embraces the inner and outer chaos and finds in it a form of dance, not imprisonment. He teaches us that sometimes we must lose superficial reason to find a deeper, liberating truth, and that journey, although lonely, is the essence of self-discovery. But where does this strength in the apparent madman come from? Not from the strategic calculation of cold intelligence or from the ability to manipulate, which the world usually admires. On the contrary, it comes from a place society often underestimates: radical vulnerability, purity of intention, the freedom of having nothing to lose. The genuine madman doesn't act out of self-interest in the conventional sense. His quest is for truth, for beauty, for a way of being that resonates with his soul, regardless of social cost. He doesn't fear ridicule because his worth is not defined by the eyes of others. That detachment from external validation is what gives him his uniqueness and strength. While society's wise men cling to titles, possessions, reputation, and power, the madman flows like water, adapting without rigid resistance. He doesn't fight the tides of public opinion. He navigates them, often in unexpected ways, finding paths that others, trapped in rigidity, can't even perceive. That ability to flow, not being stuck in fixed structures of thought or behavior, is misinterpreted as lack of control. But it is, in fact, a higher form of freedom. It is the freedom of not being a slave to expectations, fears, or conventions that dictate who we should be. Imagine the search for something of immeasurable value, your own personal grail. It may be inner peace, life purpose, the fulfillment of a dream. The sane world teaches us to seek that grail through logical methods, calculated strategies, accumulation of knowledge and power. But what if the key to finding the grail lies in simplicity, in the purity and vulnerability the world discards? The madman shows us that this quest is often not won by strength or cleverness, but by authenticity and the willingness to look foolish in the eyes of those who do not understand. He doesn't try to impress. He seeks no shortcuts. He doesn't hide. His journey is marked by the sincerity of his actions and the depth of his feeling, even if it makes him a target of mockery. The apparent ignorance of the madman is not lack of knowledge, but a lack of contamination by the tricks and cynicism of the world. He hasn't learned to play the game of falsity, because his nature refuses it. And it is that refusal, that unshakable integrity, that makes him capable of seeing and achieving what others, corrupted by the endless pursuit of advantage, never will. The irony is palpable. In a race where everyone wears masks and throws elbows, the one who shows up with a clean face and open heart is the one who, paradoxically, finds the true treasure. Society, obsessed with cleverness and success at any cost, ignores that true strength may reside in humility and the courage to be vulnerable. That courage to embrace our own ignorance before the vastness of life, to walk without the armor of arrogance or pretense, is what truly makes us powerful. The madman teaches us that the most important journey is not the one that leads to accumulating things or approval, but the one that leads us back to our own essence, pure and unshakable. It's a reminder that we don't need to corrupt ourselves to find our place in the world. Our place already exists, to the extent that we dare to be who we truly are. So what does it mean to embrace this madness in our own lives? It's not about acting irresponsibly or losing touch with reality. It's about recognizing and honoring that part of us that resists conformity, that questions the status quo, that longs for authenticity and freedom. It's our creative, intuitive side, the one that's unafraid to dream big or follow a non-conventional path, even if it seems illogical to others. This inner madman is the source of our uniqueness, the spark that drives us to explore, to innovate, to live more fully and vibrantly. Without it, we would be trapped in monotony, repeating patterns, stifling our unique voice to fit into predefined molds. The madman within invites us to dance with life's chaos, to not fear uncertainty, to find beauty and meaning where others see only confusion. He teaches us that true wisdom is not about having all the answers or controlling every aspect of life, but about trusting our intuition, following our heart, even when reason, limited by convention, suggests otherwise. To be mad in this sense is to have the courage to be authentic in a world that tries at all costs to standardize us. The archetype of the madman is ultimately a call to our own liberation. It reminds us that life, in its purest and most powerful form, is the one lived with boldness, compassion, with the willingness to embrace our uniqueness, even if it makes us different. Life's journey is not about finding the perfect sanity defined by others, but about discovering our own unique way of being sanely mad. It is a gradual process that requires self-compassion and patience. There will be moments of doubt, fear, a desire to give up and just blend into the crowd. But the madman whispers to us that true regret does not come from the paths we dared to walk, but from those we lacked the courage to explore. He encourages us to embrace uncertainty, to trust the process, to celebrate every small victory on the journey to becoming who we truly are. Because in the end, life truly begins when we stop fighting against our essence and fully embrace it, with all its wonderful and frightening madness. The greatest adventure is to be yourself. And you, how have you been nurturing your inner madman? What social norm do you feel is holding you back from being authentic? Leave your comment below and share your reflection. If this video resonated with you and made you think differently, subscribe to the channel for more conversations about the human psyche, the search for meaning, and the courage to live an authentic life. Remember, life is a labyrinth, yes, but within it, your most reliable compass is your own soul, with all its uniqueness, with all its madness. Dare to get lost to find yourself. Philosophy is the art of questioning, and life, the art of daring to live the answers.